David, I want to share a quote with you. It's written by Oprah Winfrey. She said, "For every one of us that succeeds, it's because there's somebody there to show you the way out."
Yeah.
Do you have a mentor? Do you have that person?
I have had many mentors, and I have mentors today as well. I'm going to kind of reach back in my career again and pull one out that was particularly inspirational. In the early and mid 1990s, actually mid and late 1990s, I worked for Ascend Communications. Jeanette Simons was the CTO of that company. Unfortunately, she tragically died in a plane accident a few years back, but I had the great fortune of working for her for a number of years and working in her organization, and she was a hard-driving, very demanding, probably one of the most intelligent people I have ever met, leaders. Just a quick explanation of her career. She was one of the first people who wrote Hayes modem code. She was a UCLA graduate, a frustrated gymnast who was supposed to go to the 1980 Olympics that were canceled in Moscow from the United States. And she was, she had the patience of about a 5-year-old, but I've never seen anybody write code so fast. And my favorite Jeanette story was when and I learned so much from her, was when she said to me, and this company was very small at the time, "We need a bug database." And I said, "Okay." She said, "And you're going to have to manage it." And I said, "All right." She said, "But let me go think about it for a little bit." And she went back to her office, and about 5 hours later, she came out with a compact PC in her hand. She said, "Here it is." And I said, "Here's what?" She goes, "There's the PC. I went ahead and installed the database. I put some metadata in there, and so it's all ready to go." And I was just like flabbergasted. And I looked at it and it was perfect. In fact, we used it for years later. What I learned from her, most importantly, was that you have to be impatient with yourself. You don't want necessarily to be highly impatient with others. And I learned from her that that wasn't good because she did that often. But I noticed how much she was impatient with herself. She definitely, looked inside and said, "I know I'm a good person, I know I'm smart, I know what I'm doing, but I believe I can do it better." And it was interesting how that impatience manifested itself into great products and great technology. So I felt very fortunate to be a part of her organization, and I just remember how proud she was when we accomplished a bunch of things together. And there were times when she got very upset and angry. Not my style, by the way. So I often have mentors whose leadership style is very different from mine because I feel like I can learn a lot from them. But she was one who had a tremendous impact on my career.
And I was talking to you about mentor over the years. My dad was my biggest mentor, but I saw that I have also had mentor in high school, I had mentor in college, I had mentor when I started the business. But what I saw that over the years, your mentor list changes, and sometimes you might outgrow your mentor. So do you have a dedicated plan to build a list of the mentor? Do you have a plan in place to build a mentor database, or working with a core group of 5 people in 5 different areas who is constantly advising you?
I do, and it's interesting. I'm going to tie this together with a question or a comment you made earlier about some people don't learn enough about themselves in life until later. For me, that was the case. It took me a number of years, but I spent a lot of time several years ago putting together a total leadership plan based on the book by the same title. And in that plan, I absolutely have an approach for mentorship. My father is certainly one of my mentors as well, and I think we owe a lot to our parents in many ways. And funny how it manifests itself as we get older. We realize just how lucky we are to have had them. And it's so interesting that we don't appreciate that quite as much when you're, a teenager or a little older than that. But yes, I do have a plan for that, and I do have several mentors on whom I rely. And you're right, sometimes you do outgrow them. Interestingly enough, one of my mentors, who happened to be also a boss of mine years ago, is now a dear friend. And I find myself often in the situation of mentoring her. And she's very comfortable with it. And I'll never forget when that changed. And it changed when I had asked her to be a reference for me for a job many years ago. and she told the person who called to check my references that she would work for me. And this was very interesting, somebody who I'd worked for over the years, and I was really struck by that. I would say that early in my career I was kind of a reluctant leader. I didn't really I didn't get uncomfortable, as you would say. But over the years, through really fortunate mentoring and some wonderful jobs, I've learned that, you know, there are things that I know I do well, and there are things that I don't do well. And I always try to surround myself with people to help shore up the parts of me that aren't as strong as I'd like.
David, I believe your dad was the president of FIT, and I want to tell you a little bit about me. I came from a culture, Asian culture, 21 years ago from Bangladesh to US, and the way the Asian culture works, where the parents kind of help you to shape your career. They kind of influence you to go to a direction that might not agree with your personal preference. Tell me a little bit about your dad and how he helped you to shape your future career.
Well, my dad is an amazing person, and of course I'm biased, but it's true. He was in Korea during the conflict there. He was in broadcasting for a number of years, and then, as I said, worked for the U.S. State Department in the USAID organization for a number of years, and then ultimately became the president of FIT in the early and mid 1990s. You know, his influence on me. It's funny you should ask that question, because recently he gave me a 10-page document that he'd been typing for years about his life. You know, he's 81 years old. He celebrated his 81st birthday with me a few weekends ago, and it was wonderful for us to spend the time together. And I just, you know, was struck by how much I had learned from my dad. So, for example, my dad is an incredible communicator and writer. In fact, when he was president of FIT, he was invited to write a couple times, I think, for the New York Times, and he had some guest columns in there, guest spots in there, and he just impressed upon me the importance of written communication. He didn't really steer me to a specific career, but what he did say, and what he did demonstrated by example, because he has a doctorate, which, by the way, I don't have, he said, you know, the most important thing is to learn and learn and learn. Just educate yourself and don't stop doing that. And he said, doesn't matter what you do, as long as you enjoy it, you're helping people, and you are satisfied with, you know, where you're going. And, you know, it's funny because it just shines through in those 10 pages that he sent me. And I thanked him the other day for him. I said, you know, I can't thank you enough for writing that down, because, you know, there were, first of all, things about my dad that I didn't know. You'd think that you know everything about your parents, but, you know, a lot of the little details that either got left out or over the years you didn't get. And so he had that huge impact of learning on me more than anything else.